Ethan had never considered himself a hero. In fact, he often bragged to anyone who would listen that he had a near-photographic memory for avoiding trouble. But that particular Thursday, when the streets of Sector 9 erupted in a sudden hail of gunfire, he discovered that instinct sometimes overruled logic, and that instinct could be both terrifying and hilarious in equal measure. The child appeared first as a flash of silver hair, darting between crates stacked like miniature skyscrapers in the alley behind the supply depot. At first glance, she looked human, almost too human, but her long ears twitched like antennae, responding to every distant sound as if the city itself whispered secrets only she could hear. Ethan froze for a fraction of a second, cursed his poor sense of judgment, and then dove without thinking, flinging himself over her as a bullet ricocheted off the wall inches from their heads. "Well, I guess I'm officially a human shield now," he muttered, grimacing as he felt the sting of grazed skin and the slap of wind from another round. The child didn't cry or scream. She simply gave him a crooked, almost conspiratorial smile that made him wonder if he had just stumbled into someone else's cosmic prank. Ethan rolled to the side, brushing dust from his jacket, and whispered, "Do you usually run from soldiers in full combat gear, or is this a special occasion?" She didn't answer, just yanked him up by the sleeve and led him deeper into the alley, her movements fluid and strangely buoyant, like someone who had forgotten what it was to be fully grounded. Ethan followed, tripping over crates, muttering about how he hadn't signed up for intergalactic babysitting, and joking that if he survived this day, he deserved at least a medal and a sandwich. The soldiers chasing her were not entirely what they seemed. Their armor glimmered under the streetlights with a faint shimmer of refracted light that hinted at technology far beyond anything Earth had produced. They moved with precision, scanning for a child that most humans would have dismissed as entirely ordinary. Ethan, however, had noticed details that made his stomach knot in both awe and dread. Faint pulses of light along their shoulders, almost like veins of liquid crystal, and helmets that reflected not just the surroundings, but the very thoughts of those around them. Or so he joked aloud, muttering that perhaps he was hallucinating from too much caffeine. By the time they reached the end of the alley, Ethan realized there was nowhere left to run. He crouched behind a pile of discarded crates and tried to whisper something heroic, only for the child to tilt her head and, without a word, extend a hand that shimmered with a faint, silvery glow. The light enveloped him for a moment, tingling like the mildest static shock, and when he blinked, the soldiers were gone, or perhaps temporarily displaced, as if the world itself had hiccuped and spat them into another dimension. Ethan coughed, brushing his jacket again, and said, "Well, that's convenient. Magical children got it. Definitely a Tuesday." The child giggled, a sound like wind chimes tangled in laughter, and darted ahead. Ethan stumbled to keep up, tripping over a stray hovercart and swearing at the universe in a mix of awe and irritation. They reached the roof of a low building, and Ethan leaned against the railing, panting. "So, what do I call you? Sparkle Ears? Magic Kid? Or do we skip formalities and just pretend this did happen?" The child only tilted her head again, eyes glinting mischievously, before pointing toward the horizon, where the first hints of alien ships shimmered faintly in the sky, moving with a grace and menace that made his stomach flip. Ethan's mind raced. How could he have gone from neighborhood man to unintended interstellar witness in a matter of minutes? Yet even in the chaos, he found himself laughing, muttering, "Well, guess I've got a story for the grandkids, if any of us survive." And somewhere, high above the city, silent eyes watched. They observed not just the child, but the man who had thrown himself into danger with a reckless grin and a bad sense of timing. In their calculations, they noted his courage, his wit, his odd combination of panic and humor. Little did Ethan know, his impromptu heroics had set forces in motion that would stretch across stars, bringing the galaxy closer to Earth in ways that no one, least of all him, could have predicted. Ethan woke the next morning with a sore shoulder, a bruised ego, and a lingering suspicion that the universe had a very twisted sense of humor. The child was nowhere in sight, which was probably for the best, given that he had no idea how to make breakfast for anyone, let alone a silver-haired alien prodigy. He shuffled to the kitchen, muttering about how heroic deeds should come with coffee and a manual, only to find that every appliance hummed just a little too insistently, almost as if they were watching. He laughed nervously, telling himself that his imagination was probably just overactive, although the toast did pop out with a small spark and a polite apology, which he was pretty sure was new. By mid-morning, the sky began to shift in ways that made him wish he had paid more attention in astronomy class. Colors warped and shimmered above the city, refracting in patterns that made even the dullest clouds look like pieces of living crystal. And then they came, the ships. Not like any aircraft humanity had designed, not even remotely. They floated with deliberate grace, their hulls bending light, reflecting stars that weren't really there, and hovering without a single engine noise. Ethan squinted at them, muttering, "Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what is this, Thursday? No, that was the gunfight. Friday? I can't keep track." The ships were accompanied by a faint harmonic vibration that tickled his teeth, making it hard to keep a straight face as he considered that Earth might soon get an interstellar visit courtesy of him tripping over a silver-haired child. The child appeared first, sliding down a nearby streetlight with a gleeful grin that suggested she was thoroughly enjoying the spectacle. "You weren't supposed to be this scared," she said, voice sing-song, as if she had read his thoughts. Ethan stared. "Scared? I'm just professionally cautious." "Yeah, that's it. Cautious. Totally not terrified." She giggled and tugged his sleeve, leading him toward the shadow of the largest ship, which was suspended above the city like a jewel waiting for someone to notice. As they approached, the woman stepped down, her presence radiating authority and calm. She looked human, if one ignored the long, elegant ears that stretched like wind-sculpted glass from her head, and the faint shimmer of silver along her hair that caught every stray ray of light. She smiled at him, and he swore that the world slowed just a little, not unlike when someone pauses a movie right at the best joke. "I am Liara," she said, her voice melodic but commanding, carrying the weight of centuries. "And you have made a choice that did not go unnoticed." Ethan tried to nod seriously, but ended up coughing and laughing at the absurdity. "Choice? I thought I was just tripping over your kid and accidentally saving her life. If that counts as heroic interstellar diplomacy, then sign me up for a medal, or a coffee, definitely coffee." Liara raised an eyebrow, which in alien culture might have meant amusement, confusion, or impending judgment. The child tugged at Ethan's arm, whispering, "Don't worry, she likes your humor." Ethan blinked at the pair, muttering, "Well, that's reassuring, I guess. I was worried my jokes were universally terrible." The fleet above did not attack, did not threaten. They hovered silently, as if waiting for his reaction. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to panic, yet the surreal absurdity of the situation kept him laughing, despite the cosmic stakes. Liara gestured to one of the ships, a sleek craft that seemed less like a vehicle and more like a living sculpture, and the child floated upward, giggling. "Come on, I'll show you the fastest way to fall without actually falling." Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I swear, if we crash this thing into a tree, I'm blaming you." And yet, as the city looked up, and humanity unknowingly held its breath, Ethan realized he was no longer a man on a quiet street. He had become the unwitting ambassador of something far bigger than himself. Guided by a child who defied gravity and an alien mother whose calm power made every human protocol feel laughably inadequate. Humor and panic danced together in his mind as he followed them aboard the ship, thinking, "Well, at least I can still tell jokes while potentially becoming..." Ethan clutched the railing of the sleek, undulating corridor, his knees threatening to give way every time the ship shifted, twisted, or made what he suspected was a polite attempt at flying in style. The child darted ahead, her laughter echoing like chimes through the alien vessel, while Liara glided behind him with the calm, deliberate grace of someone who had steered entire worlds without ever breaking a sweat. "I still don't understand why you trust me," Ethan said, squinting at the softly glowing panels that pulsed with colors that no human eye had words for. "I mean, I nearly got shot, tripped over your kid, and oh yes, talked back to a potentially planet-conquering alien fleet." The child giggled, flicking her silver hair behind her shoulder, and Liara's lips curved in a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "You have something rare," Liara said, her voice even and serene. "Empathy, courage, and a sense of humor that persists even in impossible circumstances. Humanity has forgotten how to wield such qualities. You remind us that even a single person can tip the scales." Ethan raised an eyebrow, muttering, "Or trip over them." Probably more tripping than tipping, but I'll take your poetic license. Liara ignored the joke, guiding him toward a chamber that seemed to exist both inside the ship and outside, where stars streaked past like spilled paint across black velvet. The child floated ahead, pointing out constellations that Ethan didn't recognize, some so alien they seemed almost like living organisms, pulsing faintly with light and sound. They arrived in a circular room at the ship's core, walls alive with shifting holograms of planets and star systems. Ethan's mind struggled to follow, oscillating between panic and awe. So, this is a casual tour for a guy who's technically supposed to be Earth's first alien hostage? He asked. The child rolled her eyes. First ambassador, not hostage. Big difference. One involves snacks. Ethan laughed, the sound absurdly human amid the hum of alien machinery. Realizing that laughter had become his shield and compass in a world he had never expected to navigate. Liara gestured toward a projection of Earth, which now shimmered with subtle patterns indicating energy flows, vulnerabilities, and possibilities. We will teach you, she said, but more importantly, we will learn from you. Humanity's choice will influence not only your planet, but the balance of this region of the galaxy. Ethan swallowed, glancing at the child, who had become an unexpected teacher in gravity-defying tricks and interstellar humor. He realized he had changed. His instinct for self-preservation had expanded into an understanding that courage sometimes required vulnerability, and that kindness, even in the smallest act, could ripple farther than bullets or armies ever could. So, basically, he said, rubbing his neck, if I don't completely embarrass myself, I get to keep Earth. And also eat some snacks. The child laughed, nodding vigorously, and Ethan realized that humor had not just survived this chaos, it had become a bridge between species. Liara extended a hand, long ears shimmering with light, and Ethan took it cautiously, half expecting the laws of physics to object. Together, she said, we will build something new. An alliance founded not on fear, but on understanding, humor, and courage. The child tugged at his sleeve, urging him forward, and Ethan stepped into the glowing center of the room. The ship responded, folding space in a way that felt almost like breathing. Earth's blue oceans shimmered below, fragile and magnificent, as if waiting for him to prove that one human could indeed matter. Hours passed, or maybe seconds. Time had a different rhythm aboard a vessel like this, and Ethan realized the fleet was not merely observers. They were partners, offering insight, technology, and lessons in interstellar diplomacy. Yet despite the staggering scale of the galaxy, Ethan found himself grounded by something profoundly human. Laughter, curiosity, and the unshakable bond formed in moments of risk and trust. He quipped to the child, I guess babysitting really does pay off. She giggled, bouncing lightly in zero gravity. Liara allowed herself a faint smile, acknowledging the absurdity that had saved not just a child, but potentially countless lives. By the time Ethan returned to Earth, carrying knowledge, humor, and perspective far beyond anything he had imagined, he felt irrevocably changed. He no longer feared the unknown. He embraced it, knowing that courage often came wrapped in awkward timing, unpredictable laughter, and the sheer willingness to act selflessly. The fleet receded, leaving Earth both familiar and profoundly different, and Ethan, now a bridge between worlds, stood in his city streets with the child by his side, ready to tell humanity that the stars had come, and that they were not here to conquer, but to invite. For the first time, Ethan laughed without reservation, aware that the universe was vast, unpredictable, and infinitely more playful than he had ever dared to hope. Ethan had never expected diplomacy to involve zero gravity, floating sandwiches, and an alien child insisting that ketchup packets were primitive human technology. Yet here he was, drifting down the main corridor of Liara's flagship, trying not to knock over glowing consoles with his clumsy human limbs, while the child zipped around like a spark of silver lightning. Honestly, he muttered, I thought saving you was dangerous. Turns out babysitting the galaxy is even worse. The child laughed, echoing through the hull with that chime-like glee, and Ethan realized that fear and humor were now intertwined in ways he had never imagined. Liara's long ears flicked lightly, a gesture Ethan had come to understand as a mixture of patience and amusement. You have learned quickly, she said, that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Humor, oddly enough, is a vital component. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You're saying my terrible jokes saved the planet? I should get a medal for that, or at least a ribbon that says Interstellar Comedian. The child rolled her eyes but giggled anyway, tugging at his sleeve to pull him toward the bridge, where a panorama of stars stretched endlessly, flecked with light from distant worlds. Ethan's chest tightened, not from fear this time, but from awe. The final negotiation had begun. Alien representatives from countless systems observed Earth's envoy, him, while Liara guided proceedings with a calm authority that seemed effortless. Ethan realized that his presence was a symbol, proof that humanity could act with empathy and courage even in the smallest, most spontaneous ways. He found himself speaking, stumbling at first, then growing into the rhythm of diplomacy as he injected humor to ease tension. We humans have a way of making messes, he said, and sometimes saving kids. If you can overlook the messes, we're surprisingly cooperative. The chamber erupted with faint laughter, a ripple across species and systems, and Ethan's confidence grew, not from technique, but from understanding that connection mattered more than perfection. Hours, or perhaps minutes, time was strange in this room, passed as agreements were made, technologies exchanged, and bonds forged. Liara stepped aside occasionally, letting Ethan lead, while the child occasionally zipped between delegations, whispering small truths about human nature that seemed both obvious and profound. Ethan realized that his growth was not in learning alien languages or mastering interstellar politics, but in embracing uncertainty, trusting instincts, and valuing humor as a bridge across unimaginable differences. Each joke, each shared laugh, had opened pathways no treaty could have forced. By the time negotiations concluded, Earth had gained allies, insight, and a new perspective on its place in the galaxy. The fleet above receded, leaving Earth bathed in familiar sunlight, yet humanity's view of the cosmos had shifted irrevocably. Ethan stood on the bridge, the child at his side, Liara observing him with serene approval. "You've done well," she said. "Not because of strength or weapons, but because of courage, empathy, and humor. You are the kind of human we hoped to find." Ethan chuckled, scratching his head. "So, basically, being clumsy, sarcastic, and reckless works in my favor?" "Noted." The child laughed, bouncing slightly in zero gravity, and Ethan realized he would never again view ordinary days the same way. Returning to